good morning to you all. As you know that we are just crossing through the pandemic that is erupted all of a sudden, and we never dreamt it is going to take such a long time. Even most of the students, particularly who are in the final year, even 12th standard as well as 10th standard, they are facing some problems. You know what are the problems that you are facing, that we can understand. But when there is a problem, always there is a solution. As a mark of solution, these online classes have begun. And in our college there is no uniform system, and we tried to adopt the uniform system, but it was not possible because of some difficulties in the level of administration. I can't explain all those details, but we have adopted some of the technologies. Particularly, what we did was we switch over to the Google Classroom, because once we recorded the videos and upload the videos will be there with you for a long time. If you didn't understand the contents for the first time, at least you can go through the same video for the second time, even for the third time, so that you can understand. But what happens with the Zoom and Google Meet is only that session is live. The teacher is available only at that particular time. At that particular time, there is no signal that is available, or if your phone is somewhere, maybe with your parent or somebody else, at that time you are not able to go through the class. But it is one such advantage having the Google Classroom that anytime when you wish to go through the video, you can go through the video, you can observe the video, you can learn the things. It is almost like a virtual classroom. Only thing is, before the teacher, students are not there. You are not there in front of us, but we are just going to address you people online. It's just like playing the cricket match without audience. But the thing is that sometimes, as a teacher, it is my experience that we never feel it is a classroom. When we are teaching to the empty classroom, most of the time we find it very difficult. We never get the spirit of teaching. Classroom atmosphere, we never experience. That is our difficulty, but still then we try our level best to explain the things in a better way. Okay, whatever it may be, first of all, I welcome you people to the classroom. Even I also thank your parents, because they are dear enough to send you people to the classroom. Most of the time, say why I am addressing this is, parents are much afraid of their words. Okay, life is very important. Okay, 1 year in the lifespan is not going to matter much, but if we are alive, then we can do anything. Most of the teachers are thinking that way. Most of the parents are thinking that way. Even we are exposing ourselves to you all people. We also know that suppose if something happens, it happens with everyone. It happens with all the class. That's why as far as possible, not according to standard operating procedure, we are not able to conduct the class. Standard operating procedure is one such procedure that one student should sit per desk. Okay, only one student should sit in a desk, and a minimum of 6 feet social distance should be there. And before entering the classroom and after going out of the classroom, your hands must be sanitized. Even we have taken some measures that when you are entering the college, you must produce consent letter as well as the COVID negative certificate. It is being done on RT-PCR technique. We are all doing it, but still then the danger is not much away. It is always there with us. Even my sincere advice to you people also is to take care to the maximum extent. Even in some of the media, maybe the TV media as well as the newsprint, some advertisements are coming. You know about that. COVID is not going to be that much dangerous, and don't worry about that. Okay, they are all the false statements. COVID is something that it is going to harm every system of the body even after it is being cured. That's why you must take care of yourself, because you are the one you are going to live a long and you are going to make your career. And you are supposed to be the spirits of your parents as well. That's why take maximum care. Don't expose yourself to the atmosphere where always there is a chances of spreading or more. Just try yourself to avoid such situations. Okay, avoid the crowd. That's very important. Okay, even if possible, you have to sit in such a way that per person one student. You sit accordingly. There is a provision. People better. Okay, I hope you all gone through the videos that we have uploaded in the previous sessions. Have you gone through those videos? Gone through the videos or not? Okay. The one chapter that I am doing was ecosystem. I started with ecosystem. What is ecosystem? And even we also explained about the components of ecosystem. Then we discussed about, say, the topics like trophic levels, even the trophic structure, the food chain, types of food chain. Even we also discussed about the food web. Okay, then energy flow in the ecosystem. Suppose if you have not gone through all those videos are there with you in the Google Classroom, you just go through the videos and understand all those basic concepts. Even in the last class, I had the discussion about the ecological pyramids. What are ecological pyramids? Even we discussed about the pyramid of number, the very first kind of pyramid. If possible, if the time permits, any difficulties that you come across during the video sessions, I will address. But the time is the limiting factor. That's why I will complete my portion. If the time is available, I will repeat the previous sessions. Okay? Let us have a thorough discussion. And kindly go through the videos. Okay, if you go through the videos, then only you will have the basic concepts, you will have the basic ideas. Okay? Fine. Ecological pyramids are in the previous video I just mentioned that they are the graphic representations. They are the graphic representations. They are the somewhat diagrammatic representations, even what you call structural representations. Okay, what these graphic representation shows. These graphic representations are going to exhibit the relationship between the organisms of various pocketlands. They are going to exhibit the relationship between the organisms of various pocketlands. You all know that in any ecosystem for that matter, maybe it is a grassland ecosystem or a forest ecosystem, maybe a pond ecosystem, you will find different kinds of organisms. First of all, you will find the producers. Producers are usually present in the form of what we call as the green plants, because they are the one that produces the food by the way of photosynthesis. That is why we consider all the green plants present in different ecosystems as producers. Then primary consumers. Primary consumers are the one which directly feed upon the plants or the producers. Usually the herbivorous animals. They directly feed upon the plants and they derive their food from the plants. That is why we consider them as primary consumers. Consumers at the first layer. Okay, all animals, remember, all animals are considered as consumers because they consume the food produced by the green plants. Primary is first, okay, these are the consumers of the first level, means from the green plants, first of all food goes to the primary consumers. Then there are certain animals we consider them as secondary consumers. As far as secondary consumers are concerned, they usually feed upon primary consumers. Mostly the carnivorous animals. Usually carnivorous animals are feeding upon the herbivores. They feed upon the primary consumers. That is why we treat them as secondary consumers. Maybe if you consider tertiary consumers. Your tertiary consumers are the animals, they usually feed upon the secondary consumers. Okay. Then sometimes there in the ecosystem there are also quaternary consumers present. There are also quaternary consumers present, and these quaternary consumers are going to feed upon tertiary consumers. So suppose if I consider grassland as an ecosystem, usually there in the grassland, producers are present in the form of what we call as green plants. Green plants are the producers, and these green plants are usually present in the form of what we call as grasses. Grasses are the major producers. Okay. Apart from grasses, you can also see some scatterly distributed shrubs as well as trees. But most of the plants that you see there in the grassland are usually the grasses. They produce food. That is why we treat them as producers. Okay, if you visit the grassland, you will see many different kinds of primary consumers. Okay, what are the primary consumers that you can see? Primary consumers are usually present in the form of plant-eating insects, maybe the grasshoppers. Even sometimes you can also see the animals like rabbits. Okay, they are also the primary consumers. They depend on the plants, they use the plants like grasses. Then you will see many different kinds of secondary consumers. Maybe the animals like frogs, animals like garden lizards, say for example. These frogs and garden lizards, they usually feed upon primary consumers like insects. That is why we regard them as secondary consumers. Even there are also the animals like snakes present. Usually snakes feeds upon the animals like frogs and garden lizards. Okay, that is why we consider them as tertiary consumers. Maybe the animals like, birds like hawks present or eagles present, they usually feed upon the snakes. That is why we consider them as quaternary consumers. Like this, organisms are present at different levels based on the availability of the food. How exactly the organisms get their food? Okay, we divide them into different categories. Here, producers are always considered as the first trophic level organisms. In the previous session, video session, I clarified all this. Because food is available to the organisms, there the ecosystem, very first to the green plants. Green plants are the one, they produces the food by the way of photosynthesis. That is why food is always available first time to the green plants. Next, what happens? From green plants, food goes to the primary consumers as and when they eat upon producers. That is why we consider primary consumers as second trophic level organisms. Okay. Then food goes to the next level, third level, that is to the secondary consumers. Okay. We consider them as third trophic level organisms. Then food goes from secondary consumers to the tertiary consumers. They are at the fourth level, remember, they are at the fourth step, even you can say. That is why they are regarded as fourth trophic level organisms. Suppose by chance quaternary consumers are present, yes, definitely these quaternary consumers are considered as, yes, fifth trophic level. Means last and the fifth step there in the ecosystem, yes, food is available to the quaternary consumers. Based on at which level food is available, we categorize the organisms under different trophic levels. What does it mean by a trophic level? One may ask a very basic question, and in the previous session I made it very clear. What does it exactly mean by a trophic level? Anybody could tell me what does it exactly mean by trophic level? All producers are treated as one trophic level. First trophic level. All primary consumers are said to be belonging to the second trophic level. Like that, secondary consumers are treated as the third trophic level. What does it exactly mean by trophic level then? Trophic means food. Trophic means food. At which particular level the food is available to the organisms there in the ecosystem. Trophic level generally means the group of organisms, you can just say, group of organisms procure the food in same general way forms a trophic level. Okay, this is with reference to the definition of what we call as the trophic level. How we define the trophic level? It's just like this. The group of organisms procure the food in same general way forms a trophic level. Say for example, we all regard producers as one trophic level. Because all producers are going to get their food in the common way, common method. Through the common method, they get their food. How they get their food? They get their food by the way of photosynthesis. That is why they are included in one trophic level. All primary consumers are considered as one trophic level. Why? Because the way of getting the food by the primary consumers is common. How they get their food? They get their food by means of feeding upon producers. That is why we consider these primary consumers as one trophic level. Like that, you can take any trophic level. Okay, all the organisms belonging to one particular trophic level, they get their food in the same general way. Say for example, quaternary consumers, how they get their food? They get their food by means of feeding upon tertiary consumers. Okay. Now, these coming back to the ecological parameters. With this information, again I brushed. I reviewed that what are trophic levels and how we assign the organisms at a different trophic level. Here, ecological parameters are showing the relationship between the organisms of various trophic levels. Means, although the organisms belongs to different trophic levels, they show certain relationships. What are the relationships that they are exhibiting? They are exhibiting the relationships such as numerical relationship. They exhibits numerical relationship, then biomass produced, and energy. Then in the organisms of different trophic levels, always there are certain relationships present, such as numerical relationship. Numerical relationship means, suppose if you consider one ecosystem such as a grassland, how many producers are present? Literally we are counting the number of the organisms present at different trophic levels. Maybe if you count the number of grasses present, they are the producers. Okay, in a given time, in 1 acre of land, there may be 1 lakh producers present. Then, what we do, we go to the next trophic level of organisms, such as primary consumers. Here we literally count the number of insects and rabbits. Maybe there are 10,000. There are 10,000 insects and rabbits altogether present. At the same time, we count the number of secondary consumers. Okay, here secondary consumers such as frogs and lizards, they may be present up to the number of 1,000. Then snakes, they may be present up to the number of 100. Then hawks or eagles, they are present to the extent of 10. Look at the relationship in terms of numbers. If 1 lakh producers present, then there must be 10,000 primary consumers, 1,000 secondary consumers, 100 tertiary consumers, then 10 quaternary consumers. There is a numerical relationship present between the organisms of different trophic levels. We are representing this numerical relationship in terms of graph. That graph itself is supposed to be the ecological. We are not only representing the numerical relationship, remember, we are also representing the biomass produced. In a given time, how much quantity of biomass that is being produced. Suppose, say for example, you consider one organism. It may be any organism for that matter. Any organism. It may be a plant as well, or an animal. Once the organism procured the food, obtain the food, either by means of directly feeding upon plants or by means of feeding upon any animal. It gets the food. But once it gets the food, all that food is not going to be used for the biomass production. Biomass refers to the total organic content present in the organism. Even you can also call it as a dry weight, organic weight. Suppose in your body you are weighing about 50 kg, just imagine. If I ask you a question, what is the dry weight of your body? What you will tell? 90% of your body weight belongs to that of water. If I remove all that water from your body, what else remains in your body? In your body, only the organic compounds such as carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, nucleic acids. The weight belongs to these compounds is referred as organic weight. How much organic weight is going to be produced in a definite duration of time? That is supposed to be the biomass. Suppose if all that water is removed, if your weight is 50 kg, your dry weight would be around 5 kg. Only 10% of your body weight belongs to that of organic compounds. We regard it as an organic weight or a dry weight, what you call as biomass. Okay, all that food is not going to be used by the organism to produce the biomass or organic content. What happens is, most of the food is going to be utilized by the organism to perform its functions. Okay, organism means it has to perform some fundamental activities like growth, like synthesis of organic compounds, like energy production needed for the movement, for the activity of reproduction, for the activity of cell division. Organism is spending its energy. After spending that energy, whatever the energy that is left, whatever the food that is left, is going to be used for the biomass production. Okay, the biomass that is going to be produced, there in the organisms of all these different trophic levels will not be the same. Suppose in one day time, just imagine, in one day time, all the green plants of a grassland ecosystem, they are going to produce the biomass equivalent to 10,000 kg. Then what about the primary consumers? Primary consumers, they get the food equivalent to the production of biomass, that is 1000 kg. What about secondary consumers? Secondary consumers are getting the food that is sufficient to produce just 100 kg biomass in one day. Like that, tertiary consumers, they may get the food that is sufficient to produce about 10 kilograms biomass. Then quaternary consumers, they are still getting the lesser biomass. The food that is being available to them is just sufficient to produce 1 kg biomass. Look at this relationship. The biomass produced by the organisms at different trophic levels will not be the same. It may not be the same. It is highest at the producer's level. It is lowest at the top level trophic level organisms. When we move from lower trophic level to higher trophic level organisms, gradually what happens is the biomass that is going to be produced by the organisms goes on decreasing. We are representing the same in the form of a graph. We refer that graph also as ecological curve. In the same way, energy that is going to be available, energy flow between the organisms of different trophic levels. How much producers gets the energy? How much primary consumers gets the energy? How much secondary consumers, tertiary consumers and quaternary consumers gets the energy? Based on the availability of energy also, we are going to plot the graph. If we plot the graph, definitely you get the graphic representation. That graphic representation is also ecological pyramid. Hence, in the ecological pyramid, we are going to exhibit, we are going to show three kinds of relationships. Numerical relationship, biomass produced and energy. Okay, already I told you about the pyramid of numbers in the previous session. I explained about the pyramid of number. Now I am going to take up the topics such as the Pyramid of biomass. Last one, the 10 minutes ನಿಮಗೆ ನಾನು ಫ್ರೀ ಬಿಡ್ತೇನೆ. ಡೌಟ್ಸ್ ನೀವು ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ. Pyramid of biomass. Pyramid of biomass. What is pyramid of biomass? First, I will give you the definition. Later, we shall have the discussion. Pyramid of biomass is a type of ecological pyramid representing the biomass produced by the organisms of various trophic levels. Okay, it is a kind of ecological pyramid, and this pyramid is going to represent the biomass produced by the organisms of various trophic levels. How you are going to generate or draw the pyramid of biomass? Even the previous video session I told you the same. While drawing the ecological pyramids, we are following certain rules. The very first rule is the first trophic level organisms. Given the name, first trophic level organism should come in the very first tier, the basal tier, the first tier. Above the first trophic level organisms, there must be second trophic level organisms. Then in the third tier, third trophic level organism should be there. Okay. Then in the fourth tier, fourth trophic level organism should be there. Okay. And in the last tier, if fifth trophic level organisms are there, and we are going to include them. Okay. We assign them in the form of tiers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tiers means the rows. Okay, let us consider the grassland ecosystem. One grassland ecosystem. It is having the space, maybe the space of this grassland ecosystem is about 10 acres. It is a given space. The given time, that's also important. How much time? In how much time the biomass is produced? Okay, maybe 24 hours time. Or 1 day time. You can say. In 24 hours of time, or 1 day time, in about 10 acres of grassland, how much biomass is produced by the organisms of different trophic levels? Suppose if you consider the producers present in the form of grasses. In 10 acres of land, that is grassland, all the grasses that are present may be producing the biomass that is equivalent to 10,000 kilograms. Like that, if the primary consumers are there, Okay, primary consumers like insects are present, then what you call as some rabbits are present. They are going to eat upon the producers. Okay, when they eat upon the producers or grasses, all that energy is not going to be available. All that food that they take in is not available for the biomass. I told you that most of the energy, most of the food that is being consumed is going to be used for performing the metabolic activities. After losing all that food performing metabolic activities, some amount of food remains, and that food is going to be used for the biomass production. Okay, the food that is available for the biomass production in insects and rabbits may be around 10,000 kilograms. That is in one day time. Suppose if secondary consumers are present, like frogs and lizards, just assume. Okay, they get the food which is available for the biomass production, maybe about 100 kg. Then, if tertiary consumers like snakes present, they feed upon the frogs and lizards, and they may get the food for the biomass production is just sufficient for 10 kg. Suppose if quaternary consumers like hawks present, okay, they feed upon the snakes and they get the food for the biomass production equivalent to 1 kg. This is the amount of biomass produced by the organisms there in the grassland ecosystem. By looking into these figures, you have to draw the graph. While drawing the graph, you must follow the very second rule that you must take into the parameter, that is how much amount of biomass is being produced. Based on the parameter, you have to allot the area. Larger the biomass produced, you have to allot the larger area. Very small amount of biomass produced means you have to allot a very small area. Okay, look here. Grasses, they are the producers. Okay, they belong to the first trophic level organisms. Always producers belongs to first trophic level, you all know. Okay, how much biomass that is going to be produced here? 10,000 kg. Means you have to fix upon the larger area. Okay, here producers such as grasses. I am allotting this much area because they are going to produce the biomass equivalent to 10,000 kilograms. Consider the primary consumers here. What are the primary consumers? Okay, here primary consumers are present in the form of insects like grasshoppers and rabbits. How much amount of food that they produce? They are going to produce the food equivalent to 1000 kg. For 10,000 kg, you have allotted this much. Then, for 1000 kg, you have to allot the area. Are you going to allot the more area or lesser area than this? You are going to allot lesser area. Maybe I am going to allot this much area. Okay, approximately this much area, not exactly. Okay. Then comes the secondary consumers like frogs and lizards. They are going to produce the biomass, yes, which is equivalent to 100 kg. Okay, here secondary consumers, they belong to the third trophic level, that you know. They are the third trophic level organisms and they are going to produce the biomass that is equivalent to 100 kg. Okay, for 1000 kg you have allotted this much area. Then for 100 kg, the area that is going to be allotted is going to become still less. Okay, in different types we are placing the organisms. Okay. Then we are allotting the area based upon the parameter. Whether biomass produced more or biomass produced is less. Then consider the tertiary consumers like snakes. What about the tertiary consumers like snakes? How much biomass that is being produced by them? It is just 10 kg. Okay, 10 kg means we are allotting still lesser area to the 4th tropic level organisms. Okay, 5th tropic level organisms like hawks, I mean the quaternary consumers, they comes at the top, they comes here. Okay, hawks are the quaternary consumers. Okay, no doubt. And these quaternary consumers, they are producing the biomass just equivalent to 1 kg. How much area that you are allotting here? You are allotting the area which is still less, like this. When you allot the area based on the biomass produced, okay, you will get the graphic representation. What kind of graphic representation that you are getting? You are getting pyramid shaped graphic representation. This pyramid shaped graphic representation is exhibiting the relationship of biomass produced by the organisms at different tropic levels. That is why we refer this as pyramid of biomass. And remember, this pyramid of biomass is upright, it is vertical. Okay. This is with reference to that of pyramid of biomass. Next class, I will address the other issues. Then pyramid of energy I will take. Even I will also take inverted pyramids. Okay. I will discuss all those things in the next class.